Welcome. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I am Paul LePage.
Yay, Paul's back. And joining us, who does our socials, Mr. Danny Paletti. How's it going, Danny?
Good evening.
And our producer, Mr. Alex Patakis.
Hello.
Good to see you again. And our new guest tonight from the newly formed Michigan Wolves, it is Joe Dylewski. How's it going, Joe?
Good. How are y'all?
Good. So it's your first time on the podcast. Of course, we like to know how your fandom came about and kind of some of your favorite memories of Wolves.
Well, first, thanks for having me. Been a listener of the podcast, and it's great to be part of it. So, to answer your question, I lived in Wolverhampton from '98 to 2000, and at the time I lived there, I didn't follow football, soccer until I went to a match. Our company had a suite, a box at Molyneux. Somebody invited me, and from that point forward, I was hooked, and it was fantastic. And so I moved back to the U.S. in 2000, and I had been following the club through their relegations and promotions and so forth, and really started to dig back in when all of a sudden these matches became available and streaming, whether they were in the championship, league championship, or the premiership. And so I thought I was alone. I didn't realize that there were a pack of people here in the U.S. following the club. And it wasn't until I went to Nashville and met all you fine people that I realized, okay, this is something. And so through that, I ended up connecting with you. And then all the while, there was a Michigan club in the Worldwide Wolves site in that area. And I had attempted to reach out to the chairperson and never got a response. And then just recently, it went away. So I put my hand up and said, okay, I'll do it. and that's how I recently formed it.
And Joe was a really big part of the planning committee to help make sure that the Wolves USA preseason tour went great. Fantastic job, Joe. I know you did a lot of the communications with it. So tell me, what was your favorite game ever as a Wolves fan?
I went to, in 2022, I went to Wolves Watford at Molyneux, and we won 4-0. Raul scored a goal. Neves scored a beautiful shot from just outside the box, and Pedence and Aït-Nouri scored as well. And it was great. It seemed to go by like that, but was with some good friends there, and it was a great time.
And I think that was the last we saw of Watford in the EPL.
Yep.
So if you had to name a current past player and a current present player, who would they be?
Currently, Lemina's got to be, especially after watching him play the 3 matches. Lemina's the top of my list, just to watch him play. The effort and what he does out there, his leadership. But previously, man, that's a tough one, Josh. I mean, I was always an O'Donnell fan, and Ruben Neves. I was always just dazzled by what Ruben Neves did, apart from his shots, but the way he moved the ball, and getting a chance to see that and getting a chance to see him play was
awesome. Bring back Adama.
That's right.
I don't think it's happening, though. Definitely Paul that has his way. Well, guys, we are going to get into preseason predictions and the season opener against Arsenal. But first, we have to say our goodbyes to one Pedro Neto, who we saw in Fort Lauderdale. He signed some stuff for us, and then he left for £51.4 million, 7-year deal. Paul, overall, what do you think?
It's weird because if this had happened right at the start of the preseason, you'd have gone, okay, then it's to be expected. He's one of the stars. This is going to set up the rest of the summer. So as it went on, and certainly with him touring and playing and featuring prominently, you just began to think, well, is there a chance he's going to stay? And it's a little gut-wrenching because you added those signings to it and he was still there. So for it to happen kind of out the blue, no real speculation about it, and certainly no one, I don't think, had ever picked Chelsea, then that's, for me, it's where it hurts a little, just because it's happened now and it's like someone's ripped the Band-Aid off and he's gone. And I think just, you can say what you want regarding injury record and things like that, but I'm pretty adamant that out of that trio of Cunha, Wang, and Neto last season, he was the only one who could genuinely and consistently be that game changer, getting that ball from deep, just through that pace and ability on the ball. He could do damage like that own goal he caused at home against Man City. That's the Pedro Neto that we know and love. Now, potentially, will we see similar from Cunha in a different role, 4-4-2, maybe genuine number 10 with a proper 9 next to him? Hopefully, that's the big hope. But out of everything, that's what I'm so disappointed about Neto departing, is that real explosiveness and to make a genuine impact on the game. Now, with that said, that deal financially, I think, stacks up with that injury record. The kicker to that is he going to be lost in that swathe of bodies at Chelsea? So does that help him maintain fitness? Can he make more of an impact, knowing that he's not going to be flogged as much as he was in a small squad at Wolves? Or is he the type of player that does need a certain amount of minutes? If he's not getting that as a starter, if he's coming off the bench to try and impact the game, is he going to be able to do it? And is his form going to suffer if he doesn't? So I think the jury's out in terms of how far he'll kick on. I think he'll do quite well, but Chelsea's a bit of a car wreck, so who knows?
Yes, Alex, he did lie to that little kid in Fort Lauderdale, though, who asked him if he was going to leave.
Yeah.
Did he
Who
say
broke
no?
news? He
He
didn't say no.
He said a word salad. That's what he did. So, Danny, a lot was kind of made of Matt Hobbs' comments about Neto leaving, saying he was in tears, and I don't think he wanted to leave Wolverhampton Wanderers. It kind of seemed like maybe this deal was forced through, but you tend to believe, nah, it's just the way it was worded.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those where, both can be true, where it could be incredibly difficult to leave a place that you've been for 5 years, especially, growing up from being a youngster to being, he's now getting close to his mid-20s, is, starting to be more prominent in the Premier League, and but still know that it's the right move. I was actually just listening to the Wolves Express thing on the way back home just now. And, hearing Matt Hobbs talk about it, it's just clear that, like, something I appreciate about Matt Hobbs is he seems to have good relationships with the players, which is always useful, so that he can actually be honest with them and they can be honest with him. And I just think it was just a tough parting. I don't really read much into that. I know, like, sorry if I'm rehashing some stuff from Twitter on this, but, I think there were some people fretting about, how he may have been pushed out because, we want to be selling players for as much as we can and whatever. But I just think, if I think back to a couple of years ago when we were lamenting having let go Adama Traore for such a small amount. And we kind of got lucky with Ruben Neves going to Saudi. I think if we had let them go at a time when they were sort of peak value and we would be worried that they would never reach that height again, we would have been thinking the same thing where, like, this feels a little bit early. I wish that he could have stayed another year, but we got good money for him. And so now I feel like we're finally getting to the point where we're, doing transfers the quote unquote right way, where, we're selling it close to peak value, and you're always going to feel a little bit worried at that point.
Joe, who's going to replace Neto's production?
I believe that Hobbs and O'Neill have a plan. When I see something like this happen and transferring a player like Neto, it's my belief that they have a plan. Now, we saw the team play, again, I saw them 3 times, and I liked even without Neto, the way that they move the ball, particularly in the final third. I wouldn't be surprised if the transfer activity is still going on.
And Alex, this kind of sets up a no stupid question from Drew in Pittsburgh.
Yes, it does. Drew in Pittsburgh emailed us. hello@wholelotofwolves.com is our email address, by the way. And he says, now that there's limited time left in the window, is it a failure if Wolves don't get a Kilman or Neto replacement, or even a young goalkeeper? Those of us who saw the backups in America can't be very excited about them. Josh, I guess and Joe, maybe, we saw the most football in America. Do you agree? I guess let's start with the last one first. Do you agree that you can't be very impressed by them? Because I was actually very impressed by many of the players in Wolves squad.
We need a new keeper. We need a backup keeper. I thought the Crystal Palace game may be a little too young, but it wasn't that I wasn't impressed with him. Like you said, I was impressed with him. There's just a few younger guys that are going to take time. But if Saw goes down, I think that's what caused the panic is, this could be bad because Bentley, Tom King, super nice guy, probably not who we need to rely on to win, on the road against, Arsenal or somebody.
I think they've got to be, when it comes to that keeper, they've got to be, I'd probably take a gamble on it that invest in a number 2 with the idea that if Saar does stay, then it's to push him. It'll be of an age and of a development stage of that keeper, who I would say would be probably championship standard now, who will be willing to come in and have some ambition to say, okay, I might be coming in to start on the bench, but I've got the talent to push the number 1. If I do get my opportunity, I'm not going to let it go. And if you're able to get a keeper that's 23, 24-ish in that criteria, you've still got that option for him to say, well, even if I give it a year and nothing happens, I can get a move. It's not going to derail my career development so much. I think they've got to really be making that investment in that number 2 to make it genuine competition. I reckon they probably tried and thought that would be the case with Bentley, and it just hasn't worked out because it's not that quality you need if it's coming in to take a starting job as a starting keeper in the Premier League.
Of course, the talk is they may have to keep Bentley just for the homegrown process. So, Danny, what would be your ideal into the window? And, does it have to do with injuries to Cunha, Strand Larson, Huang?
Yeah, I think I'd kind of like to see 2, maybe 3 players come in. I think that there's been some freaking out about, not having left back cover now that Hugo Bueno's gone out on loan. But I think Toti, the idea is that Toti will play left back sometimes in the system that we're playing. But I think for that reason, we also need a backup center back. Doesn't necessarily have to replace Kilman. I know some people feel like we need a sort of Premier League ready, or Premier League experienced center back. I'm not entirely convinced that that's the case because I just think that we may not have seen the final point of this back line yet. But at the very least, another center back for depth. Bonus if they can play either left or right back. And then I'd like to see someone replace Neto. Now, the smart money to me is to bring in someone who, is sort of in the Rodrigo Gomez, maybe a little bit older, but development sort of world. But what I would like to see, if we're talking about what I'd like versus what's likely, I'd kind of be interested in seeing a statement signing. It doesn't have to be huge money, but, someone in, close to 20 million or maybe a little bit more even, that is kind of that person who's going to be a threat the way that Pedro Neto was. They don't have to be a starter right away. They could be coming out off the bench. I know you're going to say Adama, but I'm sorry. He's doing too well for Fulham right now. But someone like that who's going to just like add to that threat where it's something that the opposition is going to have to think about, because as much as I think like it was a good move for Neto, it was a good move for us, you know, something that we have lost in that regard, if you move just from Neto to Rodrigo Gomez, is like something that the backline is really going to have to think about. I think Rodrigo Gomez is really exciting and electric, but I think with his inexperience, you know, I'd just like to see one more person in there who's like going to give center backs nightmares.
And Joe, if you could only make one signing, a center back or a winger, what would you spend it on?
Probably a winger. I think a winger. It's again. To me. It's that whole motion of moving the ball, and I think the winger right now helps them the most.
Okay. So, Alex, do you think a lot of this overshadowed? Hey, we have our manager locked up for 4 more years.
No, actually, I don't really think it did at all, because like we knew Neto was going to go, and there are 2 weeks left in this window, and we got early business done. I guess it would be different if we didn't have 3 new players, who I believe all 3 can actually play and will play for Wolves this season. So in a way, so far all has gone according to plan, you know, as much as it stings to lose Neto and to who they lost him to, really, for his career. However, you know, I think getting Gary O'Neill locked up is absolutely essential. You know, he's been linked to the England national job, which you know, is flattering. He's been linked to a number of different jobs throughout the course of time. He is key in us being an attractive project. So I think if we are going to continue to recruit well throughout the course of this summer and into January, I think having his future solidified is something that is really important, because we've seen the way he's been able to grow players and use them to their best ability. Matheus Cunha is an absolutely perfect example. So when you get these guys who maybe you would think on their surface have no business going to Wolverhampton Wanderers, right? Like Brazilian nationals, for instance. Gary O'Neill is the reason that you would say, actually, no, maybe this is the good career move. So I think to me, it's a number one. Like, that was the most important thing this summer, without a doubt. So he's had worse teams, aka last year and at Bournemouth, do well enough in the Premier League, where as long as we have him, we theoretically should be okay.
Joe, you were the only one that met Gary O'Neill on the trip. Was he what you expected? Does he give the same impression in person that he does in the interviews?
Great guy. We interrupted. Somebody was there, saw him sitting in the hotel bar, and interrupted what I think was his staff meeting, his manager's meeting, and walked up. And then, of course, I had to go and meet him. But yeah, it was a great guy, very accommodating. You know, in one of the, just to tie into that, one of the things that when we were at the meet and greet in Jacksonville, it came around to me, and I asked the question just to dovetail off what you had said. I asked Hugo at the time, Hugo, Pablo, and Tommy, to Jurgen, I said, explain to your newest teammate why Wolverhampton is special. And they said a combination of things like the manager and that the team was family. So when I hear that tells me that there's this attractive element to the club, and that sells and brings in players.
So there is some other transfer news. Paul, it's been reported that Wolves have bid £4 million for center back. Guys, are you ready? I'm going to try and say this.
I can't
Bastian Mipuyu? How'd I do? Mipuyu?
It's not bad. That's not a million miles away.
Better than I thought.
The big U.
I think the ending is more like PU, you know, like the old, like something smells in here.
Okay.
PU.
Well, we'll have to come up with a thing if it's PU. Paul, what do you think about that? First teamer, U21s, no thanks.
Probably that Enzo category, but just background that we hear about him potentially taking up more of a regular spot on the bench. I think they got to be taking somewhat care of these particular types of signings, that it's one that could come in and kick on eventually. And I think what we're seeing here, hopefully, and if he continues on his trajectory, could be something like we've seen with Mosquera, that with some development, maybe a season-long loan, as he ages, he could come back in maybe 2 or 3 years' time and be a genuine contender to start. And for that reason, you could have picked up an absolute stud for peanuts.
If his name is Mew PU, should we just nickname him Stinky now? Is that good? We good for that? No? Okay. Danny, Genoa are in advanced talks to sign Fabio Silva. It's not what people want, though. It's a loan with an option to buy. What do you think they do?
All right. Well, as the Italian, I'm going to correct your pronunciation. Genoa, have you not had the salami?
Salami? I live in Texas.
No. Anyway, I hope that it goes through, just because I think it's not a bad place for him to go and get minutes. I saw some people already, frustrated at the fact that it's only going to be an option and not an obligation. But I just think at the stage that he's at in his Wolves career, which is to say, hopefully as low as it gets, who knows? I hope it doesn't get any lower. I just don't think that you're going to get a straight sale or an obligation at a price that anybody would be happy with. I know some people would be happy with, like, give us a few dollars in return, and that's fine. But I think, Jeff Shee and even Matt Hobbs will feel like, come on, we got to get something for this kid.
We're only taking a loss for FSR, so he's got to at least
exactly
earn his book value, and he's probably a season away from that, just to get him off the books or $5 million and call it a wash at that point on his contract length. I think that's what they're looking for now.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I think, like, again, kind of like the Scotland move, like, I think that he could do okay in a team in Italy that's not too close to the top. Like, it could be fine. I hope, because I still have a lot of sympathy for Fabio. I think, like, he has annoyed many Wolves fans, but he also got the short end of the stick in a lot of ways. And I think that, like, he still could be a decent footballer, but I really hope that his attitude is better than it was at Rangers. I'll say that.
I know his rankings in the hair Wolves hierarchy went way down with the cornrows.
Well, did you see that Raul was picking that up too?
Yeah. I guess if Raul's doing it. Joe, Wolves rejected a $500K offer for Luke Kundle. Gary O'Neill, Wolves holding out for $4 million. Gary O'Neill still saying he wants him for the first team squad. When I hear people criticizing the backups during the preseason, I tend to think this might be one of the guys they're talking about. So overall, do you think he's first team quality for this Wolves squad on the bench, or is $4 million the perfect number?
I'm mixed on it, John. I mean, the jury is still out, but again, I got to see him play. I just think there's more development that needs to be done. I think he's a player in development, and so in my eyes, the jury is still out. But I wouldn't necessarily give up on him right away.
How about you, Alex? Luke Kundle, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking depth, and we've been in more desperate scenarios in the past few years than having to have Luke Kundle start a game for Wolverhampton Wanderers. So if the price is not right, and it doesn't make sense to send him out on a loan deal, like I also don't think he's someone who can necessarily demand first team football, while it might be good for his development. But look, he would be the fifth choice midfielder in a team that's very likely going to play, if we're talking about traditional center mids, 2 center mids at any given point, right? So, Boubacar Traore was not on the tour. Don't forget, he's still around. He's, I think a pretty valuable backup. So you would have Doyle, Traore, but beyond that, you still need somebody. Like, these are our center mids. They accumulate cards, man. Like, let's just anticipate there's going to be either yellow card accumulation or a straight red at some point, and let alone injuries. I think he'd be the perfect fifth midfielder for us. And I actually, contrary to what some other commenters and people who wrote in might say about backups not impressing, I thought Luke Kundle was really good in Annapolis. And
Yeah.
Danny, you even called that out on the show. Like, I actually thought I was pleasantly surprised with how he seemed like he belonged on that pitch when getting that opportunity. So, yeah, I would, unless somebody blows you away with the valuation that you want, keep him.
Danny?
Yeah, to add to that, I just think that a couple things. One is that I think it illustrates exactly what the difficulty is for a team that's operating sort of mid-table to lower mid-table, is that we don't have tons of players where you can send the youngsters out and get developed. That's what he should do. If it were just developing Kundle, he should go get another year in the championship. But in terms of Wolves, and this is my second point, is that like we had 3 big injuries to like important players across the forward line last year, and it meant that Ryan Aït-Nouri and Mario Lemina and Nathan Fraser all had to play up front. And we don't want to be in that position again. If we had 3 injuries to our first choice midfield, like I'd be more comfortable having Luke Kundle around than like whatever midfielder came up from the U21s, which is like the alternative. Now, obviously, like it's just like we were talking about with Neto. If somebody came in with 10 million for Luke Kundle, you'd say, thank you very much. That's plenty. You know, we don't know for certain this kid is going to go higher than that. But, you know, if we're talking about a break-even scenario where we feel like we're getting just about his valuation almost, I'd almost rather have the backup.
All right, guys. It is time for preseason predictions. Let's remember last year these were an absolute failure. Some of the highlights were Alex saying Big Sassy was going to score 12 goals. Paul and Alex saying Matheus Nunes player of the season. Chris Fisher thinking quarterfinals for the League Cup. Paul thinking FA Cup. Wolves go out in the 3rd round. We all said bottom table. And then I said Alex Scott would be signed at the end of the summer window. Woof. Really bad. Let's do better this time, okay? So, Paul, we're going to start out. Who is the top scorer and how many goals?
Top scorer is Cunha, and I'm going to have him as penalty taker. So he is scoring 12 goals.
See, I think last year we weren't thinking about the penalty stuff. I think that was a big thing. Alex, what do you got?
Can you blame us for not thinking about penalties? We are Wolves after all.
Yeah.
I'm going all in, man. I donned the Viking hat for a bit in the rain in Fort Lauderdale. I'm going Jurgen Strand Larsen, baby. We have a real 9. And I think the goals will be spread out. So I'll say Jurgen with 11 goals.
Ooh, look at Mike Allen, Jurgen Larsen, Strand Larsen with 15. I like it. Danny, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm conflicted because of the penalties, but I'm thankful that Alex reminded me of our poor record of even receiving penalties. So yeah, I will go with Larsen. I think it's not going to be a ton like we see in the chat. Maybe I think maybe just over double digits, but I think Larsen.
What you got, Joe?
I'm going to agree with Paul on this one and say it's Cunha. And I think Larson's going to be integral, though. When I watched Larsen play, he set the ball, he centered the ball well, and he moved it well. I think those two are going to work well together. But I still see Cunha, and I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive and say 15.
I think Strand Larsen more likely to lead the team in assists than goals. And guys, I'm going out on a limb. Rodrigo Gomez with 13 goals is going to be the lead
lordy.
scorer.
Wow, come on. Talk about calling your shot. All right, I definitely got to get his shirt.
I mean, look, guys, he scored 3 on the preseason tour.
Hey.
Let's go. I'm all in on Rodrigo.
Death taxes and Rodrigo Gomez at the back post, right?
Okay, Paul, player of the season.
Yeah, this one I had a little deliberation over it, thinking about this today. I'm kind of going a little left field because you don't often get it, and he's going to have an unbelievable season to do it. But my player of the season is Yerson Mosquera.
Wow.
I love that. I
We are
love it. I love it.
swinging
I love it,
for the
Paul. That's
fences.
awesome.
Love it.
Alex? Good luck with that.
Yeah. All right. So I am going to go ahead and say the player of the season. It's unsexy. I just could not think of someone more tailor fit for this role than Mario Lemina. I think he continues to be the anchor and the core of this team. I think he'll still have a few goal involvements and a few big moments. So Mario Lemina, our captain.
Danny?
I'm going to go with Cunha. And this is basically just me hoping that he stays healthy. But I think if he stays healthy and can keep knitting together that forward line, it's just going to be a massive season for him. And I hope that our added depth can help him do that.
Joe?
I'm gonna go with Alex here and say Lemina. I see that just him being the anchor and being an important part of what's going to happen.
I will also say back-to-back cowboy hats for Mario Lemina. It is. And for Ed's asking, I am drinking Albion tears tonight.
Well,
Nice.
if Lemina wins it again, we got to send him a cowboy hat.
I mean, so I'm planning to go up there in the spring, so we need to work on making him a custom one, because very clearly from social media, he likes the cowboy hat.
Spray painted with metallic gold.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. We'll figure something out. Okay, goal of the season, which last year, I might remind you, Paul picked Sarabia.
Amazing.
Oh, nice. Who does he go with this time?
I go with Mateus Cunha, akin to the goal he scored against Forest.
Alex?
Here I'll go Rodrigo Gomez. Some type of 80-yard run that he finishes well. That is just going to be a ridiculous moment on a counterattack, a la Pedro Neto, carrying the ball the length of the field against City. So Rodrigo, baby.
Danny?
I mean, this one seems easy. I'm going to go Tommy Doyle.
Yay!
Ooh.
We're gonna see one of those that's like bringing us back memories of Ruben Neves, and it's just gonna add fuel to the fire for Paul on the Tommy Doyle for Wolves captain in the near future.
And for England.
If you remember the end of last year, and this would be a totally outside the box, no pun intended, shout. Boubacar Traoré was going for goal of the season. That was
true.
his goal for the last 5 matches of the season. I would love someone to shout him out, but
I'd love that.
that's pretty bold.
I will not. Joe?
I'm going to go different here. I'm going to say Ichan. We've been talking all this time, and his name hasn't popped up, and I think he's going to have it this year.
Yeah, we're going to threaten losing our Korean listeners by not mentioning.
Right.
I love Mike Allen in the comments, by the way. Goal of the season, Gomez really playing the odds, because that just gives you
easy.
triple the chances.
Oh, why didn't I pick Gomez for each one of these?
I'm going to say he's going to have the most goals, so he's going to have a butte, and it's going to be Rodrigo Gomez. Man, I am putting my eggs in one basket, aren't I? Okay, Paul. League Cup finish. We know that Wolves will not play Albion because they lost today.
Already.
So what's your League Cup prediction?
Here's where I go a bit crazy. We're getting to the final.
I think the audio must be off here on this thing. Did you say the final of the League Cup, of the Carabao Cup?
We hadn't had a run in that tournament for goodness knows how long. So go big or go home with your energy drink competition.
So did they get to the final and win, or get to the final? They lose in the final
because we are Wolves.
Oh,
That's what we
I
do.
almost feel like that's worse. I don't know. All right, Alex. I like the bold. Ball's bold tonight, guys.
Yeah. I will say third round of the Carabao, or their third match, I guess, because there's other rounds. I never really remember how many rounds they play without the Premier League teams.
Oh,
So
that's different. Yeah, third match. Okay,
yeah,
Danny.
Well, Paul sort of stole my thunder. I thought I was being bold by saying they'd make the semis, but that's what I'm going with.
Semis, man. Joe.
I'm going to say quarterfinal exit.
Quarterfinal exit. Sadly, I think Mike Allen is right here. You know, the Carabao Cup, I don't think they really put a lot of stuff into it. I think they're out after the first game. He says without scoring a goal. Yeah, I'm going with that. Good shout out, Mike Allen. I like that. Well, I don't like that, but it makes sense to me. FA Cup finish, Paul.
Sticking to my guns from last season, a third round exit.
So they make the final of the Carabao Cup, but they lose in basically their opening game of the FA Cup.
Yep, at home against the team we should beat.
Oh,
It's the Wolves way.
Paul is just the stereotypical Wolves fan. I love it. I really do. Alex?
semifinal. They get to Wembley, but it just gets to be too much. Semifinal.
Danny?
I'm balancing out my bullish Carabao Cup prediction by saying that we get bounced out in the fourth round by a Premier League team.
Fourth round for Danny. Joe?
Agreeing with Danny on this one. Fourth round by a Premier League team.
I'm going to say the semis as well. I'm with Alex on this one. I do think they're going to. Actually, you know what? No, forget this. Wolves are winning the cup. They're winning the FA Cup. Why not?
Why not us?
Yeah. In case you don't know, I have poured more of my.
And almost the whole bottle.
EPL table finish. Paul.
I'm going for a distinctly mid-table 12th.
Boo. Alex.
Ninth. I'm going to say ninth. Top half finish this year with some really fun moments in spring where we dream of Europe yet again.
Danny.
Yeah, I thought ninth earlier today, and I'm sticking with it. I think it's honestly based more on my my feelings about other teams than about us. I think there's some teams that are a bit weaker than the pundits think.
Joe.
I'm going to say improvement over last year. Still top 10, but number 10. I'll say they finish in 10th.
7th, baby.
Wow.
Going to Europe. We're going to have a great second half. We're going to be healthy this time. I think we're going to get through the bumps early, work some things out. I like it. We're going to Europe next year. Of course, we'd go to Europe anyways by winning the FA Cup, right?
Yeah, if you have it your way.
Boom. Okay, surprise of the season. This can be on the pitch or off the pitch. Off the pitch, Paul.
Lima gets a full call-up and gets his first Brazil cap.
That's a good one.
Wow, love that.
Ooh.
I could tell you how it happens. That
Who even is the current Brazilian right back?
he'll end up coming in based on that new centre half signing, partnering Mosquera, Totti, takes the left back berth that makes that 3 at the back when they go forward. So Lima's going to be that outlet on the right hand side, and you're going to see all of his game shine from that attacking output. And Brazil will have some European friendly over here, so it'll be easier for him to pick up that cap by coming into Europe and playing there.
And he will bring the honey smell of his hair into the Brazil locker room. Alex?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Last year, I really, I went really big and said that I believe that Fosun was going to sell by the time this season would end. Not going to go quite as big this time. I am going to say that by season's end, He-Chan Huang will not be with Wolves.
Big call.
And I know how we all feel about the marketing aspect of that. And I did get a greater appreciation for him as a person on the Wolves tour. But there's been a lot of interest. And if Rodrigo Gomez is going to be as good as we say, and maybe one or two other wingers / forwards come into this team, he becomes expendable. And there's a market for him. And Fosun do like to cash in. So...
You know the old commercial with the Indian and littering? That's Russell Jones at the thought of Huang He-Chan. A single tear dripping down his eye.
Yeah, I see that Ed said to take that back. I'm sorry, but I really thought he was Marseille bound for a minute.
So we're talking about by the end of January, basically, right? We're not.
Well, the
we're not
January
counting
window is when we revisit this,
Okay,
right?
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So we will know if I'm right or wrong by the time we do the mid-season review, which is at the end of the transfer window.
I just didn't want you getting out on a technicality that he got sold like the day after the season ends or something.
Yeah.
No. Sorry. I don't think he's going this window, but I don't think he finishes the season at Wolves. So yes, January, if we're being, exact.
There's some bold stuff here, Danny.
Yeah, I came up with this earlier, and now I feel like maybe I don't know how bold it is, but I was going to say Gary O'Neill to be the odds-on favorite for manager sacking at the end of October.
I mean, it's pretty bold given the state of things in the extension.
I feel very confident in our season overall, but our schedule is garbage until basically the middle of October.
So how do I word that? Gary O'Neill on the hot seat at the end of October?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Man, people need to be patient. Come on.
That really links in with what Andrew's posted, though. They have a lot to spend in January. Could that even mean a new coach?
Yeah.
Do we have a Lopetegui-esque return of someone who comes in to save them?
That would be a bold prediction. Lopetegui already sacked, gets rehired by Wolves in January.
Anadama resigns.
Oh my God. You just stole Josh's.
Yep. Okay. Now I'm okay. Gary O'Neill out. Danny channeling his inner Andrew Smith, though. Good job. Joe?
My prediction, surprise, is that Wolves pull off a double with one of the top 6 teams.
Okay.
I don't know which one, but they'll pull a double with one of the top 6 teams.
Please make it Liverpool.
Now, the question is Newcastle considered a top 6 over Manchester United now?
I mean, also supplemental question, are Chelsea considered top 6? We pulled a double on them, but where did they finish?
I like that. I think Joe's going to be spot on there. My surprise of the season, Wolves will get an American in this transfer window or the January one, and will be back in the USA next summer. I'm wishing it
We
to
can only hope.
I'm wishing it into existence. Get it done, Matt Hobbs. Okay, guys. The first match. We're talking about the season, but the first match is on Saturday. It's at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. So, Danny, we don't have a guest here today. So, how about you give us the preview on Arsenal?
Yeah. What do you want to know? No. I mean, so it's early in the season. Obviously, there's not a lot to go on in terms of, previous fixtures, which normally our guests would talk about. But I figured, just go over sort of the transfer stuff and like their likely lineup. So, no real big departures unless you count Emil Smith Rowe to Fulham. He was a decent bit part player for them, but definitely not in the starting 11. They released several players when I looked it up. A lot of the players that I sort of remember from their darker days in terms of fixtures against Wolves in the last 5 years. But no one really of note. And the only person really coming in is Calafiori, who's sort of a center back / sometimes plays left back. I don't think that he's expected to come straight in. He certainly didn't start in their most recent friendly, but who knows? But in terms of what Wolves will see in terms of threat, I don't think we'll see like a ton of difference from what we saw last year. It's going to be sort of the same cast of characters that you're afraid of, your Sakas, your Martinellis, your Trossards, your Odegaards, etc. So in terms of, I guess, availability, there was some doubt like about a week ago that Saka would start the first game just because obviously he would have gotten back very late with England's exploits in the Euros, but he started their last friendly this past weekend, so I don't really see a reason why he would not start on Saturday. So I'd expect to see like their typical kind of 4-3-3, Raya, Gabriel and Saliba at center back, White and Zinchenko on either side of them. Maybe Calafiori starts. That's sort of like the one question perhaps. And then midfield of Partey, Rice, and Odegaard, front three of Martinelli, Havertz, Saka, and obviously like you could throw in Gabriel Jesus or Leandro Trossard in there, I suppose. But I think that that's sort of their starting 11 usually, and then the other ones come in when they need to. So that's sort of what I expect to see on Saturday.
And Alex, we have a no stupid question here.
Yes, we do. And it's from Adam, who, sad to say, is formerly known as Nothing But Neto, but now another excellent name, Stone Cold Strand Larson on Twitter. And he asks, now that we've seen all of the preseason, who makes your best 11? Feel free to adjust the shape to account for your preferred 11. So if you just had to put the best 11 on the field, regardless of formation, whatever it might be, how are you lining up? I mean, the opponent makes it hard, but
I'm going to let Joe start this off, seeing as he saw them 3 times in the preseason.
I mean, up front, forward wise, I'm going with Strand Larson, Cunha, and Hee-Chan.
What else you got the rest of the way, the back line?
Oh, I thought you were going to split up, put me on the hook for everybody. I'm going to have to think about that one, Josh.
So
Okay.
I think that if I'm going like our best possible 11 to play sort of like, I don't know, random Premier League team, I think you'd still, because we haven't really seen them play Premier League level opposition yet with a back four, I think I would still probably go with a back 5, and I'd throw Dawson in with Mosquera and Toti, and then you'd have Ryan Aït-Nouri left wing back, you'd have Nelson Semedo right wing back, and you have your typical Lamina and João Gomez in the middle, and then the front that Joe said. I think that's where we're at now, but I do think that like there's a potential for a lot of that to change in the first few weeks, especially as we see like Ipswich, and I think we play Forest or Chelsea, and then we play Forest after that. I think we'll see some variations there that might make me rethink that strongest 11.
We'll get to Andrew's question in No Stupid Questions there. Let's start out, though, with our predictions here for this Arsenal game. What you got?
we're going to show up and play really well, but it'll be a little like last season, and we're going to lose 1-0.
1-0 Arsenal. Okay, Joe, what you got?
1-1 draw.
1-1 draw. Man, I would take that. Danny?
Yeah, sort of similar to Paul. I'm going to go with a valiant 2-0 loss.
2-0 loss. Okay, Arsenal. Alex?
Catch him at the right time. I'm with Joe. 1-1.
1-1 draw. I was thinking Wolves are going to be way more conditioned than Arsenal, but Arsenal was also in the U.S. during this heat wave. I think Wolves are going to come out spunky, but they're going to lose 2-1 to Arsenal.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
So that brings up everybody's favorite part of the show, Alex.
That's right. It's time for No Stupid Questions, and back for season 5 of Whole Lot of Wolves with No Stupid Questions is the same great wine partner of the show, Esfuerzo Wines. 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. Head to esfuerzowines.com. Use the promo code Wolves and get a discount on your order. So, Chase Branch asks the following via X. With Leicester, Southampton, and Ipswich all coming up, is this the hardest table that Wolves have faced since rejoining the EPL?
Paul?
I think it's pretty valid that you've got Leicester and Southampton, who are the perennial sides that yo-yo a lot. So when you take out the likes of Luton, who we had, you're getting these teams of a similar profile: Leicester, Southampton, Burnley, Sheffield United. And it's not like we've ever looked at these teams and thought that's an easy 6 points. Never. We've hardly ever done a double over any of those lower teams, never mind the top 6 teams. So to me, the EPL is always hard. And I was thinking about this question a little earlier, and it just goes to remind me of how good a job that we did when we first came up to get 2 back-to-back 7th finishes. So I don't think you could ever take away that first season back under Nuno being the hardest, because we'd had no conditioning to the league. So I think that was probably the hardest. But I think you can really look at the league now and think that it's always very similar. It's definitely tougher than last year, and it's always going to be around par and a tough league.
Let's remember an Aston Villa team that nearly got relegated with Jack Grealish. Wolves played in that EPL table. Alex?
Yeah, I was going to say, to Paul's point, like those 3, these are not teams that Wolves typically play well against, or just like bottom of the table teams. I was jokingly going to say, like, I would feel better against Chelsea, Spurs, and Newcastle or something like that. But I do think, there's a benefit to Gary O'Neill having a preseason and playing in the back 4. And it's that I do think that even if we need to revert back to that after our ridiculously difficult opening, 6 to 8 weeks of the season, when we play these types of teams and we want to be super attacking, we'll be used to it. So my sincere hope is that this season, like, we'll put a few teams to the sword that we should, because we've seen that they're capable. I mean, I know it was preseason, but they did it to Red Bull Leipzig, who's a Champions League team. And, we were playing just as many starters as they probably were. Like, we were all missing players. So I think that that's where we'll see a big difference this season, I'm hoping. So hopefully that means we could take advantage of the bottom half of the table.
And Andrew Breyer had a question that came in right
Yep.
there.
Yeah, he did. And he asked if no center back is signed, can you see Gary O'Neill going to a back three at Arsenal, assuming Dawson is healthy? Now, I think it's safe to say, like, even if a center back was signed now, he's definitely not going to play against Arsenal. So we kind of hinted at this. Danny said, maybe he would bring Dawson in for this game. But Paul, like, what do you think as it relates to how comfortable you would be playing a back four against Arsenal, or if, like Andrew hinted at, should they go to a back three truly?
I think he's going to go all in on a back four, and I think he's going to try and make it work regardless. So I think even if he'd had that thought of experimenting, we'd have probably seen something of a back five this pre-season, even if it was just for a half against someone. So I think he's going to be pretty set on a back four, and I think the dynamic is just going to shift slightly based on the opponent. So I'm probably riding off the bandwagon of my Lima prediction, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's no centre-back signed, or even if there is, that back two is actually Santi, Breno and Mosquera, and Totti goes to the left-back berth, and Lima comes in, just because what they got to lose on Saturday, everyone's expecting a defeat. So why not see how that works? Hopefully take Arsenal by some type of surprise. I could see him going for a four at the back and persisting with it that way.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a theme for this year. That's a prediction, I suppose, of a sort. But I think that we're going to spend a lot of time debating whether it's a back four or back five. Like, I think we could play ostensibly a back four, but have three center backs on the field with Totti play on that left back. Because I think a lot of people don't see him as a left back. So it all comes down to what do you call a back five versus a back four, But yeah, I could imagine exactly what Paul says. Basically, a back four, but with Totti in that left back spot.
Which I guess in the preseason is something that they were essentially doing, is like their left back at that time, and it was Ryan Aït-Nouri, because of the lineup that they were playing, was basically playing as like a left-sided center back, with the right back having ridiculous license to get forward. And I saw, Gully talk about that on Talking Wolves, and it almost feels like we didn't have the personnel right, but that was almost like something that we implemented specifically to play Totti in that position, and then allow Ryan Aït-Nouri to then play further up the field, which, don't forget, he can essentially be, especially if our wingers in what is almost essentially a 4-4-2 then at some point are just midfielders who play very in line with our center mid. So I'm excited about the flexibility of the team, regardless of what the formation is. Now, I mean, doing it against Arsenal the first week is a little scary, but I'm pretty pumped about that.
One more no stupid question that came across from @Joshua Buckley on X. He asked, should I do the salt and lemon thing at Nick's place on Saturday, since there was good success last season? Paul, what do you think?
Good God, no.
God, no. Okay. Joe?
There'll be children present.
Whatever helps you cope with the situation, Josh, I'm all for.
Danny?
Well, I mean, that whole thing was to get us scoring, and it worked. So are you concerned that we'll stop scoring if you stop
I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question. Alex?
I mean, look, I think we got to do everything we can. It's Arsenal. Some of us have to bleach our hair. Some of us have to rub lemons on ourselves. We have to pray that Totti comes out with bleached hair. We need it all.
Chris Wood's saying I need to do it. If I don't do it and they score no goals, I'm doing it before the next match. How about that?
Now, what would be the exact opposite of that to solidify the defense? Like lime and pepper? Because maybe you should do a little bit of that as well.
I'll do lime and pepper. Whatever I got to do, man. I'm a team player. I'm a squad player. I'll do what I need to.
Eventually, we'll get the right citrus and spice combination that gets us to win the league.
That's the hope. I need to get you guys on board too.
Yeah, by then we'll be down to like cumin and we would have tried so many things by then.
Like I said, I've always been down to have lemon on the inside of me. I'm drinking a gin and tonic right now, so I'm doing my part.
As you guys have found out, I'm willing to embarrass myself in any way possible, online or in front of Wolves players. to help
That's definitely
Victor.
true.
It's admirable. You go for it.
I go for it.
Yeah,
Joe,
but Josh, you were the only one that got put on Mario's Instagram. So
it's true. It's true. Me and
Doing
Mario,
something right.
we're like tight now, man.
there's a method to your madness.
Bonded over cowboy hats. Okay, that's my wife chiming in. Tell her to blame. That is what it is. Okay, Joe, we're heading on out. So tell us where we can find Michigan Wolves.
Yeah, Josh, a couple places. One, if you go to worldwide.wolves.co.uk, go to the map and look on the hand. Easy to find, and I'm the only one in Michigan. Go ahead and apply, and especially for the folks in Michigan listening to this, I want to meet you. And then on Facebook, we're doing a majority of our communications, and it's you can search on Michigan Wolves. Again, drop me a line, and I'll admit you to that. And then we have a pub. I'm excited to say that we found a Wolves pub in Michigan, and it's Doyle's Irish Pub, and it's on 5 Mile Road in Plymouth, which is a great, if you know Detroit, it's a great western suburb location. That's ours. It's beautiful, great place, and I'm in the process of registering that pub with the Premier League Bar Finder as well. So looking forward to seeing everybody there. And if you want to email me or contact me, you can contact me at wolvesmichiganusa@gmail.com.
I want to see Eminem wearing a Wolves kit, Joe. That's on
There you go.
So on that theme, before we bring the show to an end, there's some other local watch parties that have started to populate that we will publicise. Charlotte Wolves, they will be at Big Ben's Pub on Elizabeth Avenue in Charlotte for the game against Arsenal on Saturday. And of course, here in Houston, we'll be at our regular spot of Nick's Place off of Westheimer. So with all that said, thank you, everyone. Appreciate Danny on the socials, Alex producing, you, the listener, and now you, the watcher, as well, for either listening or tuning in to this live stream. Without you, there wouldn't be a show on any channel. So we're eternally grateful going into this 5th season. So as we go forward this week into that Arsenal game, when you meet those new fans out and about, introduce yourself and say, "Up the mighty Wolves."